Let me ask you a question. How do you actually prove you prevented something that was probably going to happen otherwise? It's a real paradox, right? And honestly, it's the central challenge of the entire carbon market. So today, we are going to tackle one of the most important ideas in climate action, the baseline. It's all about how we go about measuring, well, an alternate reality. Here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dive into that tricky problem of measuring something that didn't happen. Then, we'll look at how the whole baseline and credit system actually works. After that, we'll explore the two main ways a baseline gets built, the rules that keep them credible, and finally, we'll wrap up by seeing why this is all so foundational to trust in the market.
Okay, let's just jump right in. The whole idea of carbon credits really depends on answering that first question. And to do that, you have to get your head around the concept of a counterfactual. It sounds a bit academic, I know, but it's really just a formal way of asking, what would have happened anyway?
So a baseline scenario is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a plausible, evidence-based story about what would have gone down in an alternate reality, one where the carbon project never got off the ground. Now, this isn't science fiction. We're talking about a super rigorous, data-driven forecast that becomes the yardstick we measure everything against.
So, great, we've got this alternate reality defined, but how does that actually generate a carbon credit? Well, let's get into the mechanics.
The logic is actually pretty simple and elegant. First, you establish that baseline. That's your business as usual emissions scenario. Second, you go do your project. Maybe you reforest a huge area and you measure what your actual emissions are now. Hopefully, they're a lot lower. And third, that difference, right? The gap between what would have happened and what did happen, that's where the carbon credits come from. Every single ton of that difference is a credit.
Okay, so the million-dollar question is, how do you actually build this counterfactual? I mean, it can't just be a guess. To make a baseline that's actually credible, project developers usually go down one of two main paths. And this is a great breakdown of those two approaches. So on the one hand, you can look inward. You can use historical data from that specific piece of land. And this is where it gets really, really technical. We're talking about digging through years of satellite photos to see how fast deforestation was happening, or looking at old farm logs to project emissions. But if you don't have that rich history for a specific site, you can look outward. You use regional data to figure out what's common practice for other similar forests or facilities nearby, and that becomes your baseline. Now, obviously, whenever you're dealing with a hypothetical, you need some serious guardrails. You can't just let people invent a crazy worst-case scenario to pump out more credits. And that brings us to the core principles that are designed to keep this whole system honest. The big certification bodies, like Verra with its VCS standard, they've built their rules on these three pillars right here. First, baselines have to be accurate. You got to reduce any bias. Second, they have to be transparent. You need to show your work so people can check it. And most importantly, they have to be conservative. And this quote from the VCS standard,
It's the golden rule. It says it all. When you're not sure, you must err on the side of caution. If you have two plausible numbers you can use, you're required to pick the one that gives you fewer carbon credits. This is absolutely critical to making sure every credit really does represent 1 ton of CO2 removed from the atmosphere. It's all about market integrity. Now, being conservative is one thing, but there's another crucial test called additionality. This is the ultimate but-for test. A project has to prove that it wouldn't have just happened anyway, that it needed the money from the carbon market to get over some kind of barrier, financial or otherwise. Because if a project was already profitable and was going to happen no matter what, well, it's not additional, and it can't generate credits, period.
And a baseline isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing. The world changes, right? So the standards make projects reevaluate their baselines every so often. As you can see, a project to stop unplanned deforestation might have to update its baseline every 6 years. Something like a wetland restoration project might be on a 10-year cycle. It just keeps everything grounded in what's happening now.
Okay, so let's zoom out. We've gone through a lot of technical stuff. Why does all of this matter so much? Well, all these rules and principles are there for one reason: to build trust. Here's the bottom line. The entire credibility of a carbon project and the value of its credits hinges completely on how good and how conservative its baseline is. A weak, overblown baseline, that just creates what people call phantom credits. They don't represent real climate action, and they completely undermine trust in the whole system.
This chart just spells it out perfectly. You have a weak baseline, you're going to have low market credibility. No one's going to trust those credits. But if you have a robust, transparent, and conservative baseline, that creates high-quality credits
that people and companies can feel good about buying because they know it's funding real change.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The entire carbon market is built on this challenge of proving a negative, of measuring something that isn't there. The rules are strict, the methods are getting better all the time, but that big question is still out there for all of us to think about. Is the evidence we're building for these alternate realities strong enough to help us reach our climate goals?